My friends, this is Thanksgiving, I guess, or it was yesterday. But for us, this is tears giving. And this isn't just a play of words, because naturally, I suppose turkey don't come with a salty skin, or maybe there is salt in that skin. But the whole idea of like stuffing a bird with things as if I don't know, it's just kind of a strange concept, frankly, to celebrate things like that by stuffing things inside of a dead animal. Um, though I guess maybe it's some sort of a metaphor for something, what has been done to the natives, maybe. Um, but frankly, on a sort of a deeper level, what we really should stuff ourselves with is stuff our cheeks and stuff our eyelids with tears on the special day, and then sort of cry with gratitude, but cry also with bitterness. One tear of gratitude, one of bitterness. And let them fall on the plate, on a paper plate. So that's what I have, Mr. Robbins. Does this resonate with you?
Well, a little bit. I understand the tears of gratitude for the turkey and the stuffing and the mashed potatoes.
And the tears of bitterness?
Tears of bitterness. Nothing's coming to mind at the moment.
Nothing's coming to mind to you?
What am I particularly bitter about? Nothing that I can specifically identify at the moment. Now, how about you? Do you have tears of gratitude and bitterness for?
Well, I have tears of gratitude for kind of having a place to live. My friends on YouTube, especially the ones who drop an undeserved dollar into the till. Yeah, I mean, I have some gratitude. I don't know if I have maybe tears of melancholy. Well, these are just fucking tears. Yeah, but I have tears of gratitude for fucking Showbiz Robbins fucking showing up again. Fucking Entertainment Pants Robbins. Where have you been? Got too big for the stream?
Well, let's see. It's been over or right around a month, and I think early on, the times we were trying to get together was around Halloween. So I had a Halloween party, and the drive-in theater does a big thing around Halloween that I made time to go to, but the weather ended up being horrible that night. But yeah, they do like a big, they show 3 different horror films, and I like to try to do that every year. It's been 2 or 3 years since I did it and didn't go again this year. So I tried to make time for that. I was down there in Atlanta, took a couple days to visit a friend down there over a weekend, and had a retirement party.
Not for yourself.
Pardon me?
Not for yourself.
No, I'm not ready to retire yet. But yeah, that was a week or so ago, and just some family stuff, trying to get caught up with the family. So yeah, that's where I've been keeping busy.
Well, that's fine. That's acceptable. Okay. Always happy to have you back.
Well, thanks, and I'm glad to be back.
And today, Mr. Robbins and I went to a showing of Big Lebowski at a local kind of the one fucking hipster street where Mr. Robbins lived nearby, and turned out that I lived nearby as well when I first came to America. So we may have crossed paths back in like 1999 or something. I don't know. It would have been like a 12-year-old me and like Mr. Robbins in his mid-20s. So that's kind of would have been a strange intersection, but we literally lived within like a couple of blocks from each other.
Yeah, definitely in the same neighborhood.
Yes, and once I've pointed out to Mr. Robbins that we lived by an abortion clinic, Mr. Robbins was like, "Oh yeah, fucking, I went by there every day, and there was a guy there. There was a person there constantly protesting abortion, like an old man, and you've been acquainted with him."
Well, I definitely saw him. I mean, he was a fixture of the neighborhood.
He was, yeah. So this is our point of intersection. This gentleman who was clearly against abortion, but aside from that, was very friendly, seemingly um, was a friendly guy. Is that how you remember him?
I don't think I ever had any personal interaction with him at all.
Oh, he waved at us all the time, but you did see him.
Oh yeah, yeah, they were out there a lot. It seemed like it wasn't only him. From time to time, I'd see other people, but yeah, there was definitely a guy there a lot.
Yeah, I think he just kind of lived there almost. Yeah, he always waved to us. Kind of that was his thing. He was against abortions, and yeah, and we lived right there. So yeah, I mean that's where we went to this overall area in Cincinnati, the one kind of hipsterish place, Ludlow Street, and we went to see the Big Lebowski. Now, Mr. Robbins, let's hear it for the pony rating of the Big Lebowski.
I'm only going to give it a 3.
Just a 3,
Just
not even
a 3.
not a 3 and a tailless pony, but just a 3.
I'll give it a 3. And how does this rate on your end?
I mean, I'll just give it a 5. As far as a feature in its genre, I fucking give it a 5. Why not? I had to wake up at an unseemly hour of afternoon of half 30 minutes to 1 p.m. For this screening. And so I want to thank Mr. Robbins also for finding this movie, and also kind of it turns out that it was like screened in the afternoon, so maybe I will be able to now reset my schedule today, my sleeping schedule, to something like going to sleep at 5 a.m., which would be a huge progress if I manage it. So yeah, that was all for the better. So this is why I might be a little bit out of it now. Might alienate Vesna, who's our only viewer right now. But I mean, yeah, the one thing that kind of spoiled this occasion for me were like the people who got into the theater. For one thing, like I haven't been to a movie theater since like 2012 or something, and I haven't watched like feature movie, like a fictional movie, since probably like 2007 when I watched The Sopranos. I mean, from start to finish. I did try to watch some other stuff in the meantime, but this was the first kind of a fiction film I watched, and so it was kind of an interesting experience. And there were like 10 minutes of advertisement before this movie started, and like one of the ads was so fucking beautiful and amazing. That Hennessy ad or whatever it was, the liquor ad.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was so amazing and beautiful, and then it's just kind of like I was never familiar with this genre of like artsy ads for like artsy movie theaters.
Yeah, and the big thing was, if you noticed, like luxury cars. So
Yeah.
they had 3 different advertisements for like upper end cars: a Cadillac, a Lexus, and a Genesis. So yeah, you can definitely tell that they know or seem to have some idea of what their audience is.
I mean, it seems like they know they have fucking trapped the demographic who doesn't otherwise watch ads, and now they're gonna like bombard them with artsy ads. But it doesn't seem like. I guess they know that there are gonna be a few bums in the audience for the 3 people who could afford fucking a new whatever the fuck they had. Yeah, it's an interesting play. I don't remember these ads. Do you know when they appeared? These like artsy ads for rich people.
Well, I remember the first time seeing the ad for the Genesis car in Chicago a couple years ago at the Gene Siskel art house theater there. And I thought, oh, whatever this thing is, I didn't even know what a Genesis car was.
Yeah.
So I'm like, they're obviously targeting, a pretty high income demographic with something like this. And then, the ads from today, it was obvious that with, I guess Hennessy's kind of an upper shelf liquor, and then definitely with those car commercials, you know who they're going after. There weren't any M&M ads or any Coke ads, nothing like that.
Yeah, insurance companies and cars. Um, yeah, real fancy. I mean, I guess seeing those ads for the first time, it was. But yeah, that liquor ad specifically was so disappointing because it's like, what is like a creation in every drop or something that was the end point. They show these beautiful vistas of cinema, and then like it's just a liquor ad. I mean, but whatever. I mean, I guess it stayed in my memory. But then, like, once the ads were over and the movie kind of began, those nerds appeared, like people who are super into The Big Lebowski, which I guess all of us except for Mr. Robbins in that theater. And there were like, it was a small room and there were like like 8 people there total. And yeah, they showed up and they started like laughing at everything, but seemingly not sincerely, but rather in kind of self-satisfied acknowledgement. Is that something how you perceived it?
Yeah, very much. It's like the little snickering was kind of like, we're all on this joke. We're all in on the joke, right?
Yeah,
And
it's almost like some sort of a ritual that
exactly.
they started snickering, and then they stopped later on when it was like already too exhausting to snicker and laugh literally at everything. But yeah, I wasn't sure how I was gonna take this movie because I am a big fan of it, but at the same time, I'm just not. Aside from like Leonard Cohen, let's see, and like Leonard Cohen and Ice Cube would be my two. I guess like Sopranos. What else am I a fan of in popular culture? Yeah, that's about it. I guess I did watch Sex in the City when I was 19, but I don't know how that's going to hold up. But this one, it's like my dad also loves The Big Lebowski. And so for some reason, I mean, this movie specifically, like, embedded. So I could be described like I'm generally speaking a fan of nothing in popular culture to that extent, but I am a fan of this movie. And yet I also haven't seen it in forever. So I was kind of interested to see how it would hold up, and it did. For me, it did. Um, Even the things that I thought I didn't like before, I liked this time. So yeah, it was kind of. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it overall. Aside from the snickering, then like I thought, I'm so timid to just stand up and switch seats away from them, from the snickering people who sat behind us, because that would be some sort of a statement. But then I went to the bathroom and then I switched seats. So I kind of do you have this timidity within you also, or?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I try to refrain unless things, get too obnoxious. And I mean, that's the thing, like going into that, we talked about it early on. I think we both had an expectation for something like that. And I think this is showing a couple more times this weekend, like later in the evening, either tonight or tomorrow. So, once people have been out and maybe drinking or something, I would expect it to be, I would not be surprised that it would be even worse. But, and having been to some of these things, these midnight movie type things, it's like you kind of go into it. You should go into it knowing that that's probably going to be part of the deal. So if you go into it knowing about it and then you end up getting upset, it's like, well, who's kind of the jerk here? It's like going to a football game knowing that people are going to be like really, really drunk and rowdy and obnoxious. It just goes with the territory. And then getting upset that people are drunk and rowdy and obnoxious.
I mean, you said it to me, and then when we sat down, it dawned on me that this might happen, and then it wasn't too bad because everybody was far away from us,
Uh-huh.
and then they came in and started doing it, and I was like, man, this really is annoying. And I tried to do the Buddhist thing of like rejoicing in other people's happiness, and this kind of helped a little bit. I mean, but then what ultimately helped was just moving to another seat after I went to the bathroom. Like a pussy, I had to first go to the bathroom and then like change my seat rather than like just being a man and manly getting up and changing my seat to like say the fuck you to their nerdy fucking self-satisfied laughter. Because it's weird, like, I guess it's like on a comedy, like your thing is to just to laugh, to acknowledge that you know the jokes or something, which is strange.
Yeah.
Like that is like in an action movie. Well, I guess in a comedy you can also like quote lines or whatever, but here like it's specifically like some sort of a smug, self-satisfied laughter, which I never thought of as I never thought that fake laughter could be employed as a means of bonding during a movie you've watched 100 times.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I told you a few weeks ago that Eraserhead showed down there, so I went to the midnight screening of that, and like as the the film itself started to roll, and the big Eraserhead came up on the screen, some knucklehead stood up and applauded, like at some kind of sporting event almost, and it's like, dude, come on.
Yeah.
Do you really need to draw that much attention to yourself? We all know what we're here for.
Yeah.
So at least what we experienced today wasn't that bad.
Yeah, I mean, once I changed the seat, I actually enjoyed it because then, like, once they started laughing, it was almost like me laughing would be. But I did another thing where again, like I do like the Big Lebowski, and when certain jokes started to come up, I did start laughing before it happened. Because like I know the movie enough to remember it, but not enough, so sort of like as the scene is coming up, I remember the joke and I start laughing prematurely at it. So that did happen, and that usually usually this doesn't happen. I don't usually laugh at movies. Like I noticed there were a few lines of like the sitcom talk where somebody says something and you say it in a overly kind of pedantic or elaborate way, like uh, like if Mr. Robbins said, "I have a boner," and I said, "Oh, right, your phallus is erect." I mean, this is a dumb example,
Yeah.
but it's like when somebody says something in colloquial language and then somebody else elaborates on it and like, and that's the joke, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that happens a lot in sitcoms, so it's kind of shitty. And it happened here, but maybe like here is where it started in movies like this, and then like sitcoms just picked it up, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, all in all, it was good. I mean, it was okay. Like I said, I saw it when it first came out, when it premiered, whatever that was, back in the
You,
90s.
you happen to be in like precise demographic who should enjoy Big Lebowski, and yet you have not only you have seen it when it first came out,
Right.
meeting the demographic requirements, and now you have seen it many times again, seemingly just because you're in this demographic, and yet you've never fully enjoyed it. You never liked it.
Well, I saw it when it first came out because I was a fan of the Coen brothers. Enough of a film nerd back then that I knew that this kind of had a fair amount of hype to it, and walked away thinking, wow, that was really, really disappointing. I don't know how often I've tried to sit through it again between then and today. It doesn't seem like very often, maybe once.
Yeah.
And then today, sitting through it, it's like, well, this is I mean, it's not bad. I'm not having a horrible time with this film, and I've forgotten so much of what's going to happen, that much of it is kind of a new experience again.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that scene. Uh, here's what it looks. Here's what it looks like to fuck a stranger in the ass, right?
Yeah, you seem to really enjoy that one.
Yeah. Well, because it just turned into like an abstract. He just started destroying another person's car. Yeah, I do like that one. And the other one, when that kind of a man drew something like on a notepad. Well, he scribbled something on a notepad, and the dude went to like do a little detective work and like sketched it out on the remaining piece of like notepad paper to see the outline, and it was just a picture of a penis.
Yeah, that I did sort of like.
Yeah. Yeah, I do like that movie. It's one of my favorites, and like the dude is kind of like a certain type of a role model for me, and I think I might just kind of make it potentially. I might be heading in that direction, like, except I'll be like in Ohio. If I was in like some cool place, it wouldn't be so bad. But like my mother can give me a condo here, and I could just be like some dopey guy in Ohio.
Yeah, I've read, because I've really wanted to to try to figure out like what's the missing piece here that I'm not getting with this movie. So from time to time, I've read things or watched videos of the people who love it, and I don't know, there's just some sort of, I think, some sort of sense or vibe to mainly the character of the dude that just doesn't resonate with me very well.
Yeah, and I think Jeff Bridges like was great in that role. No, I mean I love that movie. I mean, just the fact that I would want to watch a movie again. I mean, the other weird thing about this theater is like the quality of the picture, the quality of the was something like they were playing it on a DVD on a huge screen. Like that's what it looked like to me. So it was really like I don't know if you need official permission to play these movies in theaters. I imagine that you do, and I don't think they had it because the quality was like DVD quality there. I felt, but that's not a huge deal. It was just kind of odd. But no, I did definitely enjoy it. So I'm grateful for Mr. Robbins for finding this. Yeah, I mean, I think that the dude is like. It's kind of like I think it's partly like what happens to all of us in life, where we end up just kind of in some sort of situation where we're heavily involved in it, and then it just goes nowhere a lot of the time. You just kind of like untying a knot you didn't tie. But in him specifically, because of his kind of passivity, like it just underlines that point. Whereas in us, kind of people are more active and involved in things. Whereas in him, he just kind of ended up at this intersection. So, that's kind of the thing. Like you just kind of your life kind of goes by, and you're involved in these activities, intense activities, and then they turn out to be kind of ephemeral in nature. And in this case, this was illustrated with his kind of personality that kind of highlighted that fact.
Are you a fan at all of any of the other Coen Brothers films? I find they're generally very cleverly written. So if you like this, I would think there would be something else out there that might draw your attention.
Yeah, I've Fink.
Oh, Barton Fink.
Yeah, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Yeah, I mean, I think that they're great filmmakers. Yeah, I think that it's kind of like their clever dialogue has more depth to it than Tarantino. I find like Tarantino just makes the same movie over and over again, and it was good with the first one with well, with Pulp Fiction, and then it's just the same shit over and over again with a clever dialogue. Whereas I think with the Coen brothers, there's more, kind of always more to it, so they have more depth, yeah, of the kind of cleverer language.
Yeah, I was trying to kind of figure that out today, and in watching.
That's not said. Dude is the holy fool. That's kind of a good. She also pointed out, like, going to a concert where 3,000 people sing Allison off key. Do you find that annoying?
I'm trying to think, like, the bands I would go to see, like maybe the only the Flaming Lips, like, would have the crowd singing along with them.
Yeah.
I can't say I was super annoyed by that,
Mm-hmm.
but I could definitely see where she's coming from on that.
Yeah.
But that was the cool thing about, like, we went around the neighborhood, living up in that neighborhood with that art house theater like 2 blocks away back in the 90s. Because the 90s had that explosion of, like, indie music and indie art house films. Like, all those guys, like so many of those people who are in that today, that Philip Seymour Hoffman, John Turturro, Steve Buscemi. It's like, man, there was a really, really sweet period in films that was, like, literally right up the street back in the 90s that was really, really cool to kind of take in at the time.
Yeah. No, I can understand that. Yeah. As you were taking in the cinema, Mr. Robbins, I was learning the English language. All right. So not only do we have a kind of a description of our trip there to this area, but we also have a picture of it where we found some sweet furniture there. So I guess it's only gonna last 2 minutes, so it's not too bad. I'm filming, by the way. Anything here you like? Let me take a look at this. I mean, this chair looks kind of nice.
Be cleaned up.
It's a sweet chair.
Yeah, how'd that turn out?
It's really nice.
I don't know. I mean,
those chairs were pretty good.
I'm not
Like,
sure what I would do with the chair, though.
I'd take them all if I needed them.
I kind of like this chair. I guess I'll take it. See if it's sturdy. Go ahead and sit on it. See the guys fall through? Sorry, I made you sit on the dusty chair.
This is Mr. Robbins, my chair tester.
I think I've sat in a chair like that and just, like, fallen through because the cushion, like, the support's rotten.
Oh yeah. So you didn't mind the dust. Well, I think it's easy to dust off.
Oh yeah, it'll be easy.
Yeah.
All right. Would you like to try?
A dust print. I wonder if you killed somebody, and sat on a dusty chair, if they could identify you by by the print.
By the butt print?
Yeah, I've never heard of anything like that, but I guess they could, I don't know, maybe if it was really dusty, they could eliminate a lot of people, at least if not pinpoint your specific butt, but...
Yeah, well, I mean, it seems like a nice chair. I mean, although it's kind of, is it the ground? Yeah, it's the ground.
It's kind of crazy the shit people throw away in first world countries, I find. Because, I mean, it's like, that chair is perfectly nice.
I mean, fucking why not?
Yeah, I wonder if that air conditioner worked.
Yeah. So
Alright,
here's
that's the sweet chair. I guess for no reason, I guess it's just gonna stay in my own. You think this is good enough, Mr. Robbins?
Yeah, for transport, yeah, it'll be fine. Shouldn't knock around too much.
It's like we have too much space.
I hardly use my van for anything now. This is the first time it's been used to actually transport something. And
Well, any thought to getting something different?
I mean, I'm too lazy to well, I don't have money anyway. Like, I'm broke. But I was wondering, Mr. Robbins, what do you think about my my getup, my outfit? Like, as it pins me down,
Sweet chair.
as it pins me down as a demographic. Like, am I more of a hipster or a working man, or what am I?
Well, definitely. See that this you're an enigma here, I would say, because you've got elements of the hipster thing going. I would say particularly from the chain wallet. That's the real tell.
Well, don't fucking truckers have the chain wallet?
Well, they do. I would say, on the other hand, yeah, you're kind of going with the. Now, I hate to say the homeless,
Yeah.
but you've got an element of that going, as well as, yeah, the element of the working man. So you're a little bit of everything. There's a little bit of everything going on here.
And then my jeans are sagging, and which is not really a fashion statement. It's just that I lost weight and I wear them low. So, but they look like.
You think this is good enough, Mr. Robbins?
No, I do kind of like that jacket. It's got kind of an army feel to it.
Yeah.
I always kind of like those.
Yeah, I do as well. Like, I think that a careful observer, would see me as a kind of a subtle, hidden hipster. I think.
Well, there are definitely hints of that for sure. Now, is that a Carhartt hat?
Yeah.
Okay. See, again, I don't know exactly where that puts you. And this is the weird thing, too, about, well, we've talked, I think, before about a semi-obsession over brands. That for the longest time, it seemed like Carhartt was kind of the upper end of the truly kind of like work wear. But then I've been to other cities, and like Carhartts will have like big shops in some of the nicer parts of downtowns, which seem kind of weird. It's like, how did that transition into kind of an urban fashion thing?
Yeah, I'm not completely brand loyal because I am wearing a Dickies whatever fucking hoodie.
Yeah.
But this is like the clothes where I'm most comfortable. Like, this look is the one that I'm most comfortable in. Like, this is like almost like a perfect outfit for me. And so yeah, I am kind of a hidden, like, I do understand why Carhartt like exists in like hipster neighborhoods, because there is a it's just those clothes are better and they have some authenticity to it. Like, they have a sturdiness to them.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, I've got a few Carhartt things that I have had for years, and they are tough. Unlike Dickies. Dickies is a little bit cheaper, and they've never stuck around quite like Carhartt has.
Yeah, Dickies are cheaper. But yeah, so I don't know what any of this means, but yeah, I guess it's just I like wearing these clothes, but I don't actually like cold weather. And that's why I loved living in Seattle, like, because it always allows me, like, more or less year round to wear something like this. Like, I love fucking coats, but I don't like cold weather like the way it is here in the Midwest.
Well, is there any other aspect of the trip that you'd like to discuss? Because if not, there's one other thing I wanted to bring up.
Please do.
Okay, it was having to do with our meal.
Oh
So,
yeah.
so we, sat in a bar, and I'm curious whether or not, or how you felt about the allowance of dogs in the bar where we were trying to eat. Did this make you uncomfortable? Did you
Um,
did you think it was a dumb thing to allow?
I mean, yes, I am against it, like overall, but now I'm kind of more in a accepting Buddhist mood, and so I didn't really. Uh, I wasn't as disgusted with it as I would be if I wasn't in the Buddhist mood. And I feel that these whole things with dogs is just for like some dudes to like draw attention to themselves, specifically from women, because
Well,
it's like,
yeah,
yeah,
that's
you
an
see
interesting
how they're-
observation, because I think the situations today, they were men.
yeah, like there's never a woman sitting there with a dog in a bar the whole day. Like, what do you like? I'm gonna take my dog and sit in a bar. Like, how does that make any sense?
Yeah, that's a good observation.
So I guess I can. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think dogs are that unhygienic at the end of the day. And we were at an elevated seat where a dog couldn't reach us. But yeah, I'm against it. What about you?
I didn't mind it. Of course, I like pets, but it is kind of a weird thing that seemed like I've only observed in the last, I don't know, 5 years or less. That in certain places that those kind of things are really accommodated to.
It's really stupid.
Like
It's
10 years ago, I would have thought it was like illegal to allow a dog into a bar, and it's not like it occurs everywhere. Maybe it's just kind of more of these little hipster enclaves where that's kind of a thing.
I first saw it in Seattle, and I saw like a dog running around in a restaurant, and I was like, "What the fuck?" But here, I guess I it's just kind of it pretty much is pretentious to like say I have a dog and I'm gonna take that dog in a bar for like an hour. I mean, I guess if you're walking a dog and you drop by a bar at school, you can get a drink. If I don't drink, but I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense in that way. But yeah, it is just for different women to pet your dog. It's kind of stupid.
Oh, and the other thing was, so, having had a fairly decent experience here, having gone to see The Big Lebowski, you don't think that you would be that interested in going to see the Mr. Roger movies, having proclaimed, at least privately, I hope this isn't too much I'm exposing too much,
No, go ahead.
but that you have enjoyed Mr. Rogers in the past.
I don't know what you mean by I have enjoyed. I have
Well,
watched.
you proclaimed that you like Mr. Rogers.
There is a kind of a Buddhist quote that if you see somebody talking about compassion, kind of treat them as a Buddha. And so even if Mr. Rogers doesn't, in a technical sense, promote Buddhist compassion, he still kind of promotes kindness and compassion sincerely. And therefore, I have kind of respect for those people like Mr. Rogers. So I have not I have seen clips of his on YouTube where he seems very sincere and kind. And so therefore I do, kind of in this sense, I kind of revere people like Mr. Rogers for promoting kindness and compassion. Even though that might not seem like my persona on the channel, that's kind of an aspect of me. But aside from that, I mean, Mr. Rogers, it turned out recently, I watched a clip about him, like different facts, and one of them is that he had a black cast member, and Mr. Rogers kind of welcomed him to the cast during that time, which might have been like the 60s or 70s. But then it turned out that this man was also gay. And here Mr. Rogers told him to get a wife and stay closeted. But then that man, basically, then I don't know if Mr. Rogers apologized, but then he became liberal on gays and became liberal. So, and this man still considers Mr. Rogers like his surrogate father, and still kind of as a part of the Mr. Rogers cult, if you like. So it seems like Mr. Rogers, I mean, nobody's perfect. He did have that moment. But overall, I mean, I do admire Mr. Rogers. But you have no specific feelings toward him?
I mean, I never grew up, I mean, paying much attention to him. I mean, I knew of him, but yeah, it just wasn't anything I followed very closely. So I'll just throw it out there. I mean, if you had a good time today, you wanted to experience another outing, perhaps we could go to the Mr. Rogers. That'll be your call.
I mean, you know, I'd go. I hope I can, like, it wouldn't be waking up early for me. But yeah, I overall, I enjoyed it. I felt it was odd that the quality of the movie was sort of DVD quality. But yeah, like, what can I say? I mean, but that's not something that it's like it in any way impacted my experience profoundly, but it was just odd. But aside from that, I mean, I really enjoyed it, and I didn't mind that part at all. It's just kind of something that I found to be odd. All right, let's see. Well, I guess we can. I guess before we jump into the rest of it. Mr. Robbins and I, we're gonna do a bit of kind of a bit of an insight piece, kind of a bit of kind of going deep into the current events. Mr. Robbins, do you follow the news closely?
No, not at all.
Vesna said she co-wrote a book about Rogers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, I guess I don't know if she wants to reveal the name of the book, but I'd certainly Google it after the stream. But anyway, well, anyway, you said you don't, right?
Very, very little.
Yeah, but that's not necessary because there is a way you can enter the narrative from the meta side. And of course, Mr. Robbins, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about psychodynamic theater.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, when you don't follow the news, rather you become the news.
Okay.
Yes, and basically what happens in psychodynamic theater is that you really kind of submerge yourself in the dynamics of power, personality, and psyche. By assuming a character in the news, and then you become that character, and then everything you say, it's like 60-40, like 60% true, 40% kind of iffy stuff. But I mean, if you really kind of submerge yourself into it, then something reveals through you, through osmosis, through kind of psycho-newsmosis, okay?
Okay, I'm ready to engage in this.
Yes. So in this instance of psychodynamic theater, Mr. Robbins is going to be the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, and I'm going to be the president of America, Donald Trump. And I will ask Mr. Zelensky for a favor. All right?
Okay, I'm ready.
Ring, ring.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, this is Trump.
How can I help you, Mr. President?
Gratitude.
Could you be a little more explicit?
If you treated a woman to dinner and treated her like a lady, and you watch her eat the food, and then she goes away, there is no kiss, there is no phone call, no gratitude. What would you call such a woman?
Ungrateful?
You'd call her a little slut, is what you'd call her.
Well, that's strong, but I see where you're going with this.
And there are certain people around me who say that your country of Ukraine is a country of little sluts. That's what they say. Nobody knows anything about this Ukraine aside from the fact that it's a country of sluts, little sluts.
This seems like some form of a shaming tactic you're trying to employ here, Mr. Trump, President Trump.
No, because I always disagree. I always say, I love Ukraine. I've always loved Ukraine. And I've done so much for Ukraine. I've always helped Ukraine out. Who can dispute that?
What do you have in mind for us to repay our debts to the great United States and the great President Donald Trump?
It is not so much, well, okay, here in America, we have a deep state. Now, in Ukraine, you're too probably, and forgive me, but you're too fucking poor to have even a fucking normal state. But it's like once you get developed and you have like multiple dimensions in an economy that is worth more than a McDonald's franchise in Milwaukee. In this instance, you don't just have a regular state, and you have a deep state. And so when I first entered the White House, I didn't know about the deep state, but now it's here. It's kind of like when you grow older and you need to sit down on the toilet and you discover, a contact between your testicles and the water. And this is what happened with me, President Trump, when I discovered the deep state.
So how can I help you? How does this deep state tie into my state?
Little shitty Twitter responses, I know where they're coming from. Just little kind of shits on Twitter. When you make a tweet and you know who the enemies are, but then there are just these kind of sneaky little subtweets, sneaky little shits who live on Twitter. Little rats. Twitter rats.
And who are these rats? And why are they attacking you?
Vladimir, it's the deep state. It's the deep state, yeah. But more importantly, they're listening right now. And so, in order to convey my message properly, I will use coded language.
I see. Okay.
All right. there is a sleepy squirrel, and then there is a little shitty squirrel.
Okay, 2 squirrels.
Mm-hmm. One is the father, and the other is the son.
Okay.
And the shitty squirrel has been running around Ukraine, and I want it to be investigated.
Can you give me
yeah?
Can you give me any more detail on the transgressions of this shitty squirrel?
I feel that it left Ukraine with a few too many nuts in its cheeks.
Ah.
Illegal nuts.
Okay.
And I think if it wasn't for the sleepy squirrel, nobody would give these nuts to the shitty squirrel. Okay?
I see where this is going.
Yeah. And I want you to just follow Ukrainian law.
And follow the nuts.
Yes. Okay. Follow the nuts.
I think we can do that.
Oh, we can do it?
Is there anything in it for us? Or me?
There's survival is in it for you. Survival.
Yes, you've been a great ally.
That's right. And so when you catch the shitty squirrel, what are you going to do with it?
Well, we'll interrogate it. Find out what all it's been up to, its deviousness.
Now, you yourself have brought up following the nuts. Are we going to take one nut at a time until we get to, the dads?
We'll follow the trail of nuts to wherever it leads. To bigger nuts, to bigger squirrels.
Oh, you will? Ukraine will?
Yes.
Is this what you're going to do for me?
That's our plan.
You're going to take on the big squirrel.
Take on the big squirrel. No matter how big his nuts.
And this you find rational to do?
If there's been tomfoolery, it's our duty to get to the bottom of it. Corruption, malfeasance, political and economic.
Yeah. And this is why I want to say why I love Ukraine. And Mr. Zelensky, you name a single Ukrainian writer, a single Ukrainian poet. I dare you to name one, and I will praise them, because this is how much I love Ukraine.
No, I can't do that.
Why not?
I can't think of one.
Okay. All right. Well, that was the end of the psychodynamic theater. Mr. Robbins, what have you learned?
Follow the nuts. I think that's the big takeaway.
Yeah. Well, I think if you would actually follow politics, I don't think you would readily agree to investigate Joe Biden. Yeah, Vesna said, can't imagine Trump coming up with anything more subtle. 143 Reason Mr. Rogers Still Matters. That's the name. There seems to be some conflict over who's the writer, but yeah, I guess the main writer met Mrs. Rogers. I mean, this is amazing.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, who knew? All right. Well, I guess, do you want to watch Stefan?
Yeah, I'm interested in what he's got to say.
Yeah. A woman can kill us is the message.
I think, particularly in this room at this convention, there are so many of us who have so much to say to women, and we don't. Why? Because we're scared. And
yeah, I have so much to say to Armenians, Mr. Robbins.
So okay, yeah, this is a clip from this thing I'd watched not too long ago. He does like an hour to hour and a half in front of this group, whoever they are.
Yeah,
And the whole thing was like an hour to an hour and a half of shitting on women.
Yeah, yeah, this is the everybody now does this kind of TED talk, like shitty Steve Jobs kind of a thing.
Yeah, this is like a very low rent TED talk we got going on here.
Yeah. Jesus.
I'll tell you why. We have good reason to be scared. So this speech is everything we want to say to women. Now we only have an hour. So I'm going to speak really fast to sound like faxing. But no, so we don't have a lot of time, so I've tried to really sort of boil it down to
Speak very fast, sound like faxing? Is that what he said?
I'm not sure.
So I'm going to speak really fast to sound like faxing. But no, so we don't have a lot.
Yeah, faxing. I'm not sure what that was about.
What a weird fuck.
Very fast. You know, at some point, though, I do recall from this thing that he makes reference to his man boobs.
Okay.
A lot of time, so I've tried to really sort of boil it down to the essentials. But whatever I miss, just let me know and we'll talk about it. Oh, also, I'm going to do a workshop this afternoon at 1:30. Just, I've done a call-in show for like 15 years. So just, come and we'll talk philosophy about whatever you...
Oh, I bet that was fun.
We'll do that. And that'll be a lot of fun. Very powerful, I'm sure. So I'm going to generalize. Just brace yourself. I'm going to generalize because, there's this rule on the internet and in public discourse that you say, here's a general rule. Here's an exception. I know. Men on average are taller than women. Oh, yeah? I know a tall woman. And that's how you take discourse out back of the woodshed and put a bullet in its head. So, yes, I'm going to generalize, and not you guys so much, but, whenever this ends up out on the web, people are going to be like, exception, 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 exception. It's like, I know. But we're going to do it anyway. Because, we're talking about men and women, and their generalities to be made. So the first question is, and you guys let me know what you think. I don't think I'm alone in being scared of telling women the truth. It seems to be, if you ever follow my Twitter account, you can see that stating basic biological and evolutionary truths appears to be attempting to dry hump a wasp's nest. The guys who laugh are the guys who tried it. So that's like vivid personal experience, right? I'm not pleased to see you. I just humped a wasp nest earlier. The thing I love about live speaking is I never know what I'm going to say. So I say things like that, sentences I never thought I'd say in my life. Okay, so if you've been nervous, just, throw your hand up and you bellow something out. If you've been nervous, oh yeah, okay, the wasp nest guys. Why do you think, or is it true for you, that you feel nervous to tell women basic truths like, there's a wall, stuff like that, right? What do you think?
There's a war? What is he talking
No,
about?
there's a wall. This is a term that comes out of the manosphere. I mean, I can give you a little detail if you're interested.
Oh, please.
Yeah, the claim is that women at a certain age, I don't know what they would claim it is, probably somewhere between 30 and 40, that they, that sexual marketplace value like really starts to plummet or decline precipitously somewhere in middle age. They refer to that as like hitting the wall. You've hit the wall of like your peak kind of reproductive prime, and everything's downhill from there. So that's what he's referring to with the wall.
So it's basically like before menopause, it's like they're pushing menopause back and equating it with like social worth.
Yeah, and I mean, from what I see, it's not clearly defined. Some of these knuckleheads will say like a woman's, sexual prime, or I guess the prime of her appearance would be somewhere in her like early to mid 20s. So anything after that, you're hitting the wall and declining. Other guys might say, yeah, it has to do with reproduction. Once you hit your 30s to mid 30s, then the ease at which you're able to conceive goes downhill very, very quick. But in one way or another, that's what they're referring to.
Could get heated. Okay, they won't accept it. What else? They will freak out. Yeah, based on what evidence? I'm just kidding. Just kidding. No, what? They want to shoot the messenger. Okay. Anything else? They won't understand it anyways. Okay. So it's like, teaching cha-cha to a meerkat or something. Okay. All right. Anything? But that wouldn't be fear. That would just be like, why bother, right? So is it fear of blowback? Is it fear of being attacked? Is right? But women are smaller in general, and it's online, so they're not like in the room, right, with some machete. So I think that there's a good reason why we're scared, because women can kill us, and I don't mean physically, I mean genetically. Because we're talking about the West here, right? So in the West, consent has been the norm for reproduction for thousands of years. Don't wrap our women in a bag and keep them in the house, right? At least I hope you don't. So what can women do to us that's so terrifying? Well, they can say no. They can say no. Do you know what percentage of men throughout history have not reproduced? 60%? Anyone else? 98. Are you from Saudi Arabia? I'm just. So it depends where you look at it, but the number is around 40% of men did not reproduce. Now that sucks. Like, I think, what is it? 3 billion, 4 billion years of evolution. And think of all that struggle, like some single-celled organism eyeballing the open air saying, all right, we're going to make a break for it. We're going out of the ocean. We're hitting the sand, boys. And fighting and dying and then like 4 billion years. And then she says, no, that's it. It's like the Texas sharpshooter just blows off your balls, because the evolution of your entire line stops there when she says no.
But that's how evolution is supposed to work, you fucking idiot. Like, that's the point of evolution, that that's one of the drivers of evolution, Somebody said no.
Yeah, so that if you don't have the social skills or the resources to attain that,
yeah,
what's so wrong with that ending?
Yeah. That's the point of evolution.
Yeah. And where's this figure? I mean, I might look it up later. Of 40%. I mean, is that history wide? And granted, this is only, I guess, sort of anecdotal or observational. But man, when I look at like the males in my immediate family, it's like, man, it's nowhere near like 40% that haven't reproduced. It's more like 5 to 10.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you could. That would, like, what is the percentage then of women who haven't reproduced? So that's like, what would be their statistic for that? I mean, how would that normally work without like polygamy?
Yeah, I don't know. This is all. I mean, you get what you pay for with Steph, so you've got to take it with a grain of salt.
Like, there isn't like the frustrating part of it, aside from the kind of the thick misogyny is just that they're stupid. Like they're just very stupid people.
Well,
Like their internal theories, like even your misogynist theories could be more or less kind of internally consistent.
yeah, and it's like, who's itching to have these conversations that Steph is telling them, or you know?
Yeah, like it's like most men don't want to fucking talk about some wall. Like,
Yeah,
like what normal guy wants to talk about the wall? Like, who wants to talk about this fucking shit?
exactly. It's like with anyone.
Yeah.
Okay, like in a space where you might feel more safe about talking what he's saying we want to talk about. Theoretically, a more safe space for that would be between guys. But it's
Yeah.
like none of us are having that conversation. None of us are itching to sit down over a beer and be like, hey, man, let's talk about why 40% of us aren't reproducing.
Fuck it.
But here's an interesting question. Tell me what you guys think. Why on earth do men go to war? Now, there are wars like people are invading, guys are invading your local space, right? So there are those wars where it's like, okay, I regret, I got to pull out my sword and go fight or whatever. But, like Syria, Kuwait, Iraq, I mean, just like, why do guys go to war? Why do you think? I mean, so I remember thinking about this as a kid, right? Now, there's the draft and all of that, but I think it was in the First World War, hundreds of thousands of American men just said, you want the draft? Here's my butt. And they just didn't go. Not much happened. Why? Why do men go and fight in these useless wars? It's not like they're well paid. Yes. Depacification, that certainly is a Brazilian wax, I think it's called. Should I bring more of my inner censor to bear on the conversation or not? No? Okay. All right, then I'm going to just not. Okay. Okay, so yeah, you don't want to be called a pussy, right? Okay, what else? Why? I mean, you're risking life and limb trauma to preserve life. Well, yeah, but it doesn't. I mean, really, war in Syria, Libya. I mean, this doesn't preserve life, right? Honor, okay, honor, right? That's fair.
It's like,
oh yeah, because all those.
Not only do we suffer through Stefan, but it's just like all the contributions from all these other dunces as well.
Yeah, I sort of remember where this is going.
Oh, fuck it. What happened?
What the story is, right? Sorry? But the soldier doesn't have power because the soldier has to take orders, right? The illusion of power, yeah. Now, I would say, you guys know, you're woke enough, right, to these issues. You know about the White Feather campaign? You guys heard this? And how many people have or haven't? You have? Okay, well, real brief then. So, a man can be killed with a feather. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. And I'm not just talking some, like, Swedish BDSM thing, but, or am I? No, I'm not. So, a man can be killed with a feather because in the First World War, everybody was, like the British were very enthusiastic. Why? Because there hadn't been a war in Western Europe since the end of the Napoleonic Wars in 1815. The Franco-Prussian, a little bit here and there. But so everyone was like, oh, I know what war is. War is like all those paintings that we see. There's a white horse, you're charging, there's cheers, there's, like all the stuff you play as a kid, like that's war. And that they were all signing up. And they were terrified it was going to be over by Christmas. That was the word, right? 1914. Oh, man, it's going to be over by Christmas. I got to get in there and get my stories and get my medals and my heroism. Spoiler, it wasn't over by Christmas. The First World War just went on and on. And really was the greatest catastrophe to hit the Western world ever. Wiped out almost all of the economic gains from the Industrial Revolution. So all those kids got black lung for nothing. And after a while, people were like, I don't really want to go. Like, it's trench warfare, which is just about the worst thing. The truth came out that war is not riding up a hill with a sword and cheering and, right, heroic, noble death if necessary, but war is sitting in a half-frozen muddy ditch with rats gnawing off your toes while some asshole 20 miles away pushes a button and blows you up. And of course, there was the Christmas peace, where the British and the German soldiers said, hey, it's Christmas, let's just play football, soccer. It was terrifying to the powers that be, that people might realize they have much more in common with the people across the trench than the people high up at their power structure. So men didn't want to go. So enlistments just cratered. So women would take a white feather and they would walk up and down the streets. And if they saw a military-age man who was not in uniform, they would hand him a white feather, which was a symbol of cowardice. And this was terrifying to men. Now, this makes no sense when you think about it, but then it does. So it makes no sense because, like, ooh, a feather. Sure, I'll go get my ass blown off in a trench. But here's the thing. The reason that men go to war is because women won't sleep with them if they don't.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
It just motivates so much of what we do. And it's not crazy and it's not neurotic. It makes perfect sense, evolutionarily speaking. Let's say you go to war, and let's say you have a 50% chance of dying. But if you don't go to war, no woman will sleep with you. For the continuance of your genetics, is it better to go to war or not? Better to go to war. If you go to war, you got to.
I like how somebody volunteered in this.
I didn't even hear that. I'm trying to process all this stupidity at once.
Yeah, it's
overwhelming. It's like what is the percent of men that volunteered in the most recent wars? The percent of men as a population, like of the age to be able to go, who've stayed home and still gotten married and reproduced.
Yeah.
I mean, geez.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that's kind of, it's like you're listening first about the wall, which kind of presumably like women should know about the wall if they're experiencing it, and then they should be presumably desperate for men, and now they're gonna look for men who only fought in a war.
See, this whole thing could have been a really nice subject for a lengthy deconstruction. I think you could have done a lot with this.
Yeah, I mean, in my former life,
the chance of passing on your genes, if you don't go to war, you have 0% chance of passing on your genes. That's why we're scared. Because all the men who said, I don't care what women think.
It's like these kinds of like revelations. Well, these kinds of things shouldn't be revelations. Like, presumably we all should know that we need, like, why is he telling us kind of things that seemingly, like, if I don't go to war, I don't reproduce? Why would you tell that to somebody, right? It's kind of like saying, like, if you eat beans, you know, you're gonna have whatever gas, right? Like, you don't do the fucking Steve Jobs reveal on something right like that. Like, that should be obvious. He's telling us about our obvious motivations, that, you know, we would go to war to get laid. Like, we have missed out this whole time on something that seemingly is obvious, that has been motivating humanity for centuries, and he had to go back to like some women in World War I, which he kind of generalized to all women. Like, there probably were however number of nuts who were doing this. Like, that's something I should know by now, Stefan. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I mean, it seems like maybe he has this idea that this is the reveal, that no, men don't go to war because they've been drafted, or they don't go to war for the glory.
Yeah.
You go to war because you want to get laid.
Yeah.
It's like, really?
Right.
That's been not our, but the men who have, that's been their primary motivation.
Yeah, and that's why boys like watch Power Rangers and like play with guns and like violence. It's so just the internal kind of a training to get laid, I guess, is just like building up to this. And that's the power of the state. It like withholds the women from you, and unless you fight for the war. It's like the women are the foundation of totalitarianism because you kind of have to fight for the state to get laid. It's like a conspiracy between the state and women.
Oh boy.
Offended and upset women where they were like, no thanks, boy. Sorry, we're closed. They use the old, you can get birth control for 10 cents.
What?
Just hold it there.
Hold what there?
I don't know what he's talking about. Is he referring to like a condom or something?
Yeah.
Cents. Just hold it there.
I don't fucking get it.
You can get birth control for 10 cents. Just hold it there.
This is intellectual comedy. That's what it is. It's above you and me.
Yeah. I don't know.
So if women said, we're not going to sleep with you if you don't fight, you go fight. Because then you've got a chance to continue your genes. Otherwise, it ends right there. So we're scared. Now, do you guys do Twitter? Just hands up if you do. All right. Okay, so on Twitter, there's kind of like a cliche. Like if you upset women, what do the women say? Incel, right? Involuntary celibate, right? Who hurt you? What else? You live in your mom's basement, right? Neckbeard, right? Sorry? Small penis. Not necessarily no penis. I suppose that's the insult thing, right? So yeah, you can't get laid, small penis, your mommy issues, and so on, right? Now, that of course is, you know how like they do things in the military, they'll paint you with a target that you can't see, and then some other infrared thing points out the target. So women, what they're trying to do is draw a moat around you, and they'll say this very explicitly online. They'll say, ladies, here's a symbol, here's exactly who you should never date. They'll broadcast it out across the gyno.
Yeah, and everybody fucking knows who you are on Twitter. Like
yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. It's like, okay, if the women online single a single person out as a neckbeard,
yeah,
it's like you're still having you're still having social interactions outside of that space, like real social interactions where nobody gives a shit what you're being called online.
Yeah, but nobody knows what you're being called online because nobody
right. That's a whole right. Good point.
I mean, that's the point. Like, nobody knows who you are. Like, nobody literally knows unless you're like, like even whatever. People don't know my last name.
Yeah, it's like whatever stigma they give you on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. It's like that stigma doesn't follow you into the real world.
Yeah, it's like
sitting down with another person at a table and having a conversation,
Yeah, I'm not like some influence maker by any means, but like I have a venue that is way more kind of public than a Twitter account and has more kind of engagements than an average Twitter account by far. And yet it had like zero impact on my life, my real life so far. Like absolutely zero. And in my case, my first name and my face. And in Twitter, nobody knows anything. Nothing.
Like undertow network, right? Don't date this guy, right? That's genetic death. It's the rejection sharpshooter that takes off your balls. Genetically.
Yeah, a bunch of random people like calling you a neckbeard, not knowing anything about you except for the fact that you're a piece of shit, on Twitter. That's your genetic like death shot or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, to be generous, I'm trying to process this all at once. So to be a bit generous, I guess what he could be saying is that there's probably a lot of overlap to your kind of Twitter circle and your real social circle, so that when you get labeled on Twitter, that kind of filters out to some more of your real social circle.
Yeah.
That seems somewhat plausible.
Yeah, Vesna said holding a dime like between your thighs, closing your legs. That was what he was referring to.
Oh, okay.
They are warriors, because a warrior can end your bloodline if he kills you before you have children or kills your children as well. Women can do the same thing. Now, that's fine. I have no problem with that. Of course, women should be able to say no to anyone and everyone that they want. But let's at least recognize that that's a very powerful thing. And all the men who said, I don't care, offended women. The women didn't sleep with them. And that indifference was weeded right out of the gene pool.
Yeah, it's like once you take women into a sphere of like collective action, it's kind of really, it's like communism, where you take a group of people, label them a class, and make them into a historic actor, a collective actor. And then you can fucking shoot them up because they're acting as a class against you. And so here, if you make women into a class, then literally some, women not wanting to sleep with you becomes a class conspiracy against you.
Yeah. So Vesna asks, what is the appeal of this moron, do you think? Do you have any interest in even trying to address that?
Well, I mean, I think the appeal of him is just the loneliness of the modern world. And out of this comes anger, and that's kind of where he comes from. I mean, we have a lot of people in the world today, like 300 million in America alone. So yeah, I mean, out of these 300 million, a certain number of men who are lonely are going to get angry, and then they're going to create an online culture, and Stefan is just benefiting from that. But it's kind of loneliness. Like you can't meet a Russian unless you go out of your way and find a Russian to interact with. Like you can't find somebody to talk about French literature unless you go out of the way and meet someone. If you don't meet women, if you sit alone all day like I do, then it is no great surprise that you're single. And again, like I've already said with the male friends, how many male friends you've made as an adult. We're basically isolated, and this makes it into a conspiracy. Last night at dinner, I told my wife that when I came in the house the night before at 11, there was a candle burning on the table. Just informing her nicely to try to remember to blow out the candle before heading to bed. Her response was that I left the burner on the stove at lunchtime a few years back. Most women are completely incapable at looking at themselves objectively and taking responsibility for their actions. So I guess there is yes, I guess some of them are just dislike women in general.
Yeah, Steph's been making moves for a long time, or for a while, I've noticed, into this realm of like, hyper misogyny. Of course, he's had some trauma from growing up. I can't remember the details, but he had a pretty rotten childhood, it sounded like, as a child of a single mom. But yeah, I guess that's maybe this is going to be his new direction for a while. Did you see one of his videos? I don't think I sent it to you, where he's almost on the verge of tears and like literally begging people to give him money.
Yeah. Oh no, I haven't seen it. I guess this is the one you should have sent for this one.
Yeah,
But
that was out a few months ago.
yeah.
Or he may have taken it down, and the only way to find it is through someone else commenting on it.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, okay, let's talk about something going on the left. So you had some stories about destiny and ContraPoints.
Yeah, I saw another guy's video commenting on this, and looked like there was some controversy with, that guy Destiny, and stemming from being outed for using the N word rather casually in his private life. And, as a guy on the left, when this came out, there seemed to be people in his circle that, didn't care for that. And rather than try to defend himself, it seemed more like he kind of doubled down and was like, yeah, I do. And so what?
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. So my kind of thought about Destiny is like, I don't know how big he was on accusing kind of people of being racists and to what extent, like what was his threshold. But I mean, to the extent that so I don't know if he used in the past the same kind of metrics of racism that he now kind of uses to kind of what's the word, not expel, but what's the word of making oneself innocent, or making another person, declaring them innocent. Well, anyway, extradite, or
No.
well, anyway, fuck it, I'll just use the word extradite as a substitute even though it's not correct. But yeah, to kind of extradite himself from this situation. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of complicated for me to say, because I do have a friend who occasionally uses the word, but not against just kind of white ebonics. So I can't personally kind of claim some kind of self-righteous anger when it's not used directed at black people, but just used as some sort of a greeting. But yeah, I just don't know Destiny, like how far he would define his kind of political correctness before, because he could be a hypocrite, and then again, maybe he isn't. What do you think? Exotic, yeah.
Pardon me. I don't know. I mean, it's just not a word. I think it's cool to use. However he might have been using it in private, like casually.
Well, he was just using it to call his names, like, hey, hey, N-word, how are you? Kind of, I imagine that's what he was referring to.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, but it's just like in this day and age, it seems like it's probably best to try to move on from that.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I think the intent behind the word is more important, and I personally can't say that I particularly care. When my friend uses it, I don't use it back, and he hasn't used it in a while. I don't know. I can't really say that it had any racial connotations because he never used it as a slur. He kind of used it in that way, but yeah. So. But yeah, I basically agree with you. Though it's strange that you say this when you yourself went to a bar with a Confederate flag, which effectively kind of sends a message to most black people that they're not welcome there.
That's true. I have been in there a time or two.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Well, Mr. Robbins, I guess I can call you out on this later if you become a big YouTuber.
That's right.
Yeah, I
And
can
I'll come
show
on
you.
here and I will weep for forgiveness. I will come onto your channel
Yeah.
to weep
Uh,
for forgiveness.
well, you can be defiant about it. I just went there, to see white people, I guess, sitting around in an all white space. So then, yeah, I don't have, like, I'm not a fan of Destiny. I never really was. I kind of found his debates to be a little kind of self-satisfied a lot of the times, and he was kind of debating a lot of the times. It was just kind of like goofy people on YouTube who are, kind of pointless to debate anyway. And one time, Mr. Medicare came on, and it didn't go too well for Destiny. I mean, he just wasn't able to. Not to say that Mr. Medicare, I agree with him, or that he had like great points, but he just wasn't so stupid as to like create junctures for exasperation by Destiny. And he, at the end, just had this like exasperation that kind of looked goofy, I felt, but I don't know. I don't have strong feelings about him one way or another, but I wasn't a fan. Guess it's good to have people on the left on YouTube anywhere. What are your thoughts about him?
I don't follow him a whole lot. I mean, it seemed like he was pretty quick and well spoken. The thing that stands out was him being on Jesse Lee Peterson, and
Yeah.
Peterson trying to make fun of him over his name and things like that. He seemed to handle himself pretty well on there. Yeah, but that's about as much as I know.
Yeah, he did kind of get stuck with that name. It's funny.
Yeah, that gave old Peterson plenty of ammo to, call him the beta male.
It's funny. It's funny you called him Peterson just now. I never connected the two.
Well, not Jordan Peterson, that Jesse Lee.
Yeah, I never connected that. Not that it's a particularly meaningful connection, and I wish to undo it. All right, so let's continue with ContraPoints.
Yeah, so there seem to be ContraPoints. I believe this is the way it goes. Put out some sort of tweet talking about like being in certain spaces in. What did she describe them as? Kind of like woke spaces where a person like her frequently finds herself sitting in a room amongst people who you kind of have to go around and everybody announces how they prefer to be identified.
Yeah.
And I think it went something like this, that she said she finds it a little bit strange for a person like her to have to explain herself in a situation like that where, and I forget what she said, anywhere in North Carolina or South Carolina, I would be seen and just treated as the woman that I obviously am trying to be. So I think she was just kind of pointing out that it was kind of a weird situation for her to be in at times, and that drew some criticism. And it may have been a video that she did, that she included, I think, some audio of this guy, this person, I should say, named Buck something. But as it was explained, he's been, in the trans community for kind of a long time. To someone like ContraPoints, I think she kind of looked up to him as kind of an early person speaking for the cause. But I guess that there's been some controversy around him in that he's more an advocate for the transsexual community, who are the people who have physically undergone a transformation, versus the
Transgender,
gender or non-binary community who more identify as something other than what they are biologically, but haven't gone through any sort of physical transformation. So I guess that's his claim, is that these are two separate communities, and the folks on the transgender side, don't see that as kind of fostering inclusion.
Mm.
So there's been some, it seems like or sounds like there's been some controversy regarding that. So the fact that she brought this guy and used some of his audio in her video, it sounded like some people were expecting her to denounce him, which she did not do. And as a consequence, she made a video where, she explained that she had been the subject of a lot of hate. I heard she's kind of been run off Twitter, and she hasn't made a video in about a month. So she seemed pretty distressed in that video that I saw her explaining all of this. So it was just interesting. I guess the big point is, it's interesting to me to see how, like, a movement gets so splintered and everybody going into trying to find a specific little niche within what you would already think is sort of maybe a bit of a niche, and competing within that for like power that at times almost seems to like do more harm than good, that it's kind of undermining the cause with everybody splintering off into these little warring factions.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say really anything new here aside from like what I would be, I guess, expected to say as a cisgender or whatever, white male, liberal privilege. I would kind of put it this way. There is a price for social progress, and the price is kind of this ideological hunt for purity. Like, there doesn't seem to be an ability for people to move kind of in a move forward without kind of issues associated with that progress. But that progress is still vital. Like, today, kind of with Me Too, and you could see how even in the West, feminism is very relevant and needed. As a part of it, there would be, like, I guess, a few feminists or whatever who make cartoonish generalizations about men, but that's kind of worth the price of admission, worth the price of having, the importance of feminism. And in the same way, like, here, like, it's worth giving human dignity, obviously, to people who are transgender. And as part of it, there's going to be this ideological hyper purity, which is idiotic on its own kind of merits, but it's just kind of inevitable, where so much kind of, I guess, online activism, and in the sense it's kind of a joke. And it's the same with like race relations. Like, when I was in high school, and you kind of even remember further, where these kind of other aspects of racism weren't really discussed that much, whereas now they're discussed, but there's also this idea of like kind of cartoonish generalizations around white people and white privilege, at least the ones that I find cartoonish. I don't know, but it's kind of inevitable. So I'd rather have these issues discussed than having these byproducts. But thing is, some people who dedicate themselves to a cause, any cause, a good cause, they do become a little bit unhinged. Like, they do live in the world of this cause. Their mind is consumed by this cause. They get very irritated when people deviate from their understanding of this cause, and then it's very meaningful to lash out at them. So that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, that's a good point. You become so, deeply invested in it that, any sort of deviation is seen as sometimes as kind of a threat, when, maybe it's just kind of a difference in opinion.
Like, I do get a little bit triggered when I kind of read, like, there was some sort of like, there was recently that the series of stories about women traveling alone, and the dangers they face. And it's true, like I never really considered that. But then there were like, when I went to the comment section, there were like some comments that I found to be cartoonish. Like they're like, well, I never go around in the dark. And it's like, while it's true that I have like way less concern about walking around in the dark, and like some scenarios they were discussing about being alone were like the situations where like most men don't go alone in these situations either. So it's, it was like this a little bit of an exaggerated sense of what you're free to do as a man. Not to say that, again, that point wasn't completely valid, that women obviously do face more risks. So that's kind of was one. And then there was like a comment of like that you often see in these situations. It's like, why should women be more careful? It's men who have to stop raping. And it's also like, I mean, there are a lot of men who rape, like really a lot of them, but that's still not the majority. And it's like, we all have to, that's the principle of crime, that a minority of people commit crime, and we all have to be careful. And it applies to men and women, and it applies more to women, of course, with sexual crime. But it's not as if like there's like some sort of a cultural shift most men can make to stop rape, because most men aren't rapists, even if the subset of men who rape is relatively speaking very large, potentially from like 5 to 10%, which is obviously very large. So, but it's not like the other 90, whatever, 80, 90% of men, like there is something I can do to stop rapes through the culture of being a man. So that's kind of cartoonish. But overall, I mean, that's kind of a minor kind of footnote of a complaint about raising these issues. So I think that like Me Too movement was very good, and overall, like the principle of Black Lives Matter is very good, even though they're also like the idea that the police can withdraw completely from black neighborhoods is a kind of a good solution is kind of silly.
Yeah, so that's all I really had about that. Just kind of these observations I find interesting of these,
I mean, when you're obsessed with something, like purity tests become like hyper important, and kind of sometimes to a silly, ridiculous degree.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see that and how that compares to some of the stuff that's going on the right at the same time, without going into great detail there, but how there seems to be a lot of like jockeying for power between kind of the old kind of norm right and these more fringe groups that seem to be really on the attack. I don't know how much momentum they're gaining, but
I find that, like, to be honest, like for me, like, and again, it's just controversial, I guess, but for me, like these kind of like some old school like masculine ideals, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't apply to women also if they want them, like they still kind of matter at least a little bit, of not constantly fucking whining about shit. It's like, all right, you're fucking alone, stop whining and bitching about it. Like the one thing I've gotten used to in life is like being single without constantly whining and bitching about it. So maybe I'm like being hyper insensitive. It's like maybe like somebody who hasn't experienced depression would like consider what I do whining. So I don't know, maybe it's kind of like that. But it's like, especially, it's not even like complaining about being lonely, but even like this turning it into consistent like nagging women about the fact that they don't have sex with you, creating these giant schemas and making a political ideology out of the fact that you don't get laid. I mean, that is just so pathetic.
Yeah, it's really, yeah. I mean, so what do you think? I mean, do you think that there's something to this kind of culture of victimhood going on, that there is a real shift, or is this just something people have made up? Other things fall apart?
To some extent, I mean, there is some kind of a culture of victimhood. I think people don't have communities. They don't have local communities. And so these online communities of identification, like if you think about what would a community that's not locally based look like? And seems like a community in the era of alienation would be in some way directed against another aspect of society that you live in, and then kind of and have a shared experience. And so in this case, like victim culture is there, but I'm not saying it's always bad. Sometimes it's good to have this kind of parallel class identification, even if it once again it comes with some like drawbacks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's negative. I mean, in these with the incels, with the angry incels.
Yeah.
All right, so let's change our mind to something less controversial, or kind of lighter, I guess, lighter to the spirit. And this is, what kind of a pony are you? A normal Earth pony, or a unicorn, or a Pegasus? Pegasus? How do you pronounce it?
Pegasus.
Yeah, not a Pegasus. That's something different. Would you have magical powers, or be able to fly and walk on clouds? You can test it maybe with my quiz. I don't fucking know. Don't take this quiz when you hate MLP FIM. Okay. This is My Little Pony, for those who don't know the acronym. But what is the FIM then, Mr. Robbins?
I am.
MLP FIM.
Yeah, I'm not quite that deep into the whole brony community to know what those are.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't hate I don't hate MLP, but maybe I do hate.
MLP would be My Little Pony.
Yeah, but FIM, what is this?
Friendship is magic.
Oh, okay. No, how can I hate that? All right. So, what is my age? Well, It's strange it doesn't have any other category. That's already kind of suspicious to me as far as pony quiz. Do you enjoy being outside? Not really. How, on the scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, rate how strong your concentration is. I mean, I don't know. In the broad category, I would say 4 to 7, but it would be likely like a 4 or a 5. Pick a trait you have: intelligent, strong, fast, acrobatic, green fingers, high concentration. Mr. Robbins, are you aware of what green fingers mean?
No, I have no idea what that's a reference to.
Okay, which one would you choose for me?
I'm having a hard time seeing this green. Let's go with intelligence.
Yeah.
I mean, you are quite athletic, but I think the intelligence trumps it.
Okay, thank you. You tend to think, and this is worded poorly, you tend to think logical, carefree, strategically. I mean, think carefree. I mean, this is really this poorly worded question. How would you answer this for yourself? Logical, carefree, strategical?
I would say more logical.
I mean, it's kind of, I guess I'll put, in the sense, like, I think logical about shit that doesn't kind of matter or impact my life. Well, it seems like you're not going outside today. It's really pouring. Oh, well, I'm going to finish this book, spend some time with my animals. I'll be bored, run circles through the house. I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess I'll put like finish my book in terms of like thinking about something. But thank goodness an hour has passed and the weather has cleared. Now that it's sunny, what will I do? Go outside and work in my garden. Go outside and play with my friends. Stay inside and work on something. Stay inside and work on my hobby's craft. Burst out yelling finally and started running in an open field to run. I'm going to say stay inside and work on my hobbies. Pick one. Veggies, sweets, tea, cake or pie, fruit, meat. I'm gonna go for meat. What the fuck? Now it's like in... This makes no sense. I don't speak Spanish. Okay, that's... do you believe in the paranormal? I'll say yes in the state of the mind that I'm currently in. Okay, one will descend. Which one has happened to you? Something I stared at moved. No, so far no luck with that. I felt a certain urge of running. I felt weird, as if I could fly at any moment. Bursts of funny, tingly feelings inside of me, as if I needed to unleash something. I felt a connection with animals or nature, feeling their emotions or even communicating. Mr. Robbins, has any of these happened to you?
Sudden burst of running, was that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could maybe I could go with that.
Okay. Okay, well, I guess I'll put a funny, tingly feeling inside of me, as if I needed to unleash something. You are determined, loyal, strong, hardworking, quiet, intelligent. I don't know. I mean, I'm not determined and loyal, so I guess I'll fucking put quiet, intelligent. Pick a place to picnic. Hogwarts in a mountain, like literally inside a mountain, in a forest. Who fucking wrote this? But I'll choose in a mountain. How about that? Pick a symbol: lightning bolt, stars, flowers. I'll go for the lightning bolt. Pick an object: fucking wand, shovel, books, skateboard. I like the wand. Pick an element. Well, this one is easy: wind, because it's like in the subtle energy system. In Tantric Buddhism, we are run by the winds. When riding a roller coaster, the most important thing for you is the thrill, the price, the safety. If it's fast, nothing. I guess I'll put the safety. I don't know. I guess I'll put nothing. If you need a place to relax, you go to somewhere quiet, somewhere cozy, somewhere exciting. Home. I'll go home. All right. Mr. Robbins, are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm the Pegasus.
Pegasus. All right.
Where the fuck is the... Or wait, no, I'm a unicorn. I can't even read this shit. I'm a unicorn, Mr. Robbins.
Okay, what's the detail below?
Yeah. Unicorns are capable of magic, such as finding hidden objects, telekinesis, and turning objects into different objects and or shapes. They can have many different spells, that is, if they learned how to control and use magic.
Well, you've really got some things to look forward to.
And I'm a very strong unicorn at like 84%. I'm not like a fucking borderline.
Oh, no, you're right up there. That's probably as close to alpha unicorn as it gets.
I kind of would prefer to be an earth pony, because it kind of sounds very melodic and poetic. Earth pony.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, like a unicorn isn't even a fucking pony. So, like, to the answer to the question of what kind of a pony are you, I'm not a fucking pony at all, Mr. Robbins.
No, you're some mythical creature.
Yeah, I'm somewhere like, I don't know if like ponies and unicorns can even reproduce. I mean, I guess it depends if the unicorn went to the war or something. I like especially my superpower of turning objects into different objects.
Ah, yes. So do you have anything in mind yet?
Well, I just like that kind of a very broad, on the one hand, like this description is very broad. On the other hand, it like literally there's nothing magical about it at all, because we all can turn objects into other objects, you know? Like we all can like make things out of different objects. So it's not really much of a superpower the way it's phrased. Mr. Robbins, do you think I should be happy with this result?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, those are some pretty wonderful powers. Of course, you don't really have anything to compare it to.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So you don't really know what the powers of the alpha unicorn are.
I mean, I kind of like
pony.
yeah, like Earth Pony sounds very like tempting, but yeah, that it's just I can't like on some level. It's for some reason it's very funny the way they phrased it, turning objects into different objects. That's just that's not like a power of a unicorn as much as it is a kind of a capability of anyone. But anyway.
Well, maybe it gave you that because you selected the wand, wizardry.
Yeah. Cast many different spells if you learn how to control and use magic. Yes, so this is also kind of very, it's interesting, kind of the poor use of language in combined with cliches, like makes for a very interesting and mystical description, I guess. All right, Mr. Robbins. Well, I think we have reached the end of this stream. I hope it is enjoyed by the viewers. I hope that it has added something to their lives. What are the chances of that happening, Mr. Robbins, on a 10-point scale?
I'll give it I'll give it a 5.
Okay, sounds reasonable. Because some people do go to sleep to this. But anyway, I'd like to thank everybody for watching, and I want to thank my patrons for sticking around and supporting the mentally ill. Support me so I don't grow bitter about women. That's the so I don't turn into fucking shitty blue balls, fucking Steve Jobs over there. With a kind of a lot of idiocy up my sleeve. But anyway, thank you for watching, and be well.